Hello everyone, my name is Vikas Bohra and I will be narrating my data story on the topic is Fintech, changing the viable payment option of cash. My story is highlighting contrasting differences I found in my main dataset from the World Bank's Global Fintech reports of 2017 and from these other data sources. Let's begin with the description, Fintech. Well, fintech is also known as finance technology, and it's an emerging industry that uses technology to improve activities in the financial services. The uses of smartphones for digital mobile banking, mobile wallets, third-party payment applications, and cryptocurrencies are few examples of fintech that's aiming to make financial services more accessible to the general public. Before I continue, I just want to highlight that the Global Fintech data is referring to the adults that are aged 15 and above. Moving to my visualization, I want to start with the world population and the world GDP to make a point that how important the sheer size of the population of these countries are with that of their land mass and their respective GDP. And with the current world population of over 7.5 billion, China and India has the population of over a billion each. And combined, they represent about 40% of the overall world economy. And in terms of GDP, US has always been on the top with over 19 trillion US dollars, representing about 30% of the overall world economy, followed by China with 12 trillion US dollars, representing 20% of the world economy. And as the question suggests, these are the top 10 countries in terms of population, and these are in terms of the GDP. Well, people generally have a misconception that a higher GDP means higher fintech option in those countries. Well, that's not the case here, because as you can see that the largest and the smallest economies play a different role in the financial world than their GDP number or the population number would suggest. Moving on, let's see which countries has the highest bank account ownership. And it's quite evident from this data that in the year 2017, 69% of the adults worldwide opened a bank account. But being said that, it's also important to see which country records highest number of gender gap in the bank account ownership. As the question again suggests here, these are those top 10 countries with highest gender gaps in the bank account ownership. And moving on, let's see which country is taking the complete advantage of their bank account ownership. Well, this is my favorite visualization as it shows those countries in blue shades, which can be a perfect example of cashless economies to those countries in the burgundy and red shade, which are still relying on cash irrespective of them having a bank account or not. Moving on, let's see how these countries, how these bank account holders are spending their money. This comparison clearly shows that credit card and debit card usage is a lot than compared to the mobile phone payments. But it's interesting to note that the trend of making mobile phone payments is catching up, during online shopping, over the counter shopping, and in mobile money payment transfers. And on the other hand, it's also interesting to note that country like example India, which claimed a high bank account ownership here, records only 12% of those using a credit card or a debit card for their direct purchase, and 5% of them only using a mobile phone to make payments. And rest are relying on cash for their online purchase, over-the-counter purchase, and a direct purchase. Well, let's look at the unbanked data now and see how many adults are still unbanked and what is the gender gap in them. As per this data, about 1.7 billion adults are still unbanked, which means they neither have a bank account nor a mobile money account. And almost half of these adults live in the developing economies like China, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Nigeria, Bangladesh, and Mexico. And of these unbanked adults, 56% are women and 44% are men. And this clearly shows the gender gap in terms of the account ownership. And these were the top 3 major reasons cited of the adults not having an account. And one thing that is interesting to note here is that India and China, despite of having a high bank account ownership, they claim the large share of the unbanked adults here because of the sheer size of their population. Moving on, let's see how the total percentage of adults who own a smartphone go against the unbanked adults who own a smartphone. This chart is interesting to me because having a smartphone can potentially open access to mobile money account or other financial services. But as we can see here, that out of these 1.7 billion unbanked adults, over 2/3 of them actually have a smartphone with internet, but not a bank account or a mobile money account. And conclude, based on my findings, it's quite evident that fintech is changing the viable payment option of cash in many countries. And more people who have a bank account or a mobile money account are moving towards digital payments for the convenience that it offers. Financial inclusion matters for development in the country. For any government which pays subsidies, social welfare payments, or pensions, need to switch from cash to digital payments to reduce corruption and improve efficiency, as there are no middlemen involved and all the government benefits are transferred to the families receiving it. Well, I say this because if we look at these top 10 cashless countries, well, irrespective of them having a low GDP, they rank very high in the corruption-free ranks and the ease of doing business rankings because of the investment and development they had in fintech. Moving to my recommendations, many developing economies are highly dependent on cash for their everyday transactions. Well, again, with over 2/3 of unbanked adults having a smartphone, digital technology is enough to increase or create the financial inclusion. And to ensure that people benefit from digital financial services, the government will need to develop a good payment system, a good infrastructure, credit regulation, and consumer data protection. And these recommendations has to be tailored to the needs of the disadvantaged group, such as the women here, the poor people here, and also the people who have low literacy skills. And with so many people already having smartphones but not bank accounts, if the basic infrastructure requirements are met, then the mobile phones can potentially open access to mobile money account and other financial services, as it eliminates the need of traveling long distance to a financial institution. And also by lowering the cost of providing financial services, digital technology will eventually increase its affordability because smartphones, again, will be an alternative to a debit or a credit card for making direct purchases or payments. And at the same time, it'll expand the range of possibilities, which will help to overcome the barriers that the unbanked adults say, which prevent them from accessing the financial services. Thank you.